This is the Velotric Nomad 1 Plus, a new and improved version of Velotric's fat tire bike. This model can reach Class 3 speeds up to 28 miles per hour, and it fits a really wide range of riders thanks to an adjustable stem, along with a couple of other minor improvements. We reviewed the original Nomad in early 2023, so will this version of the bike show any differences in performance and feel? Let's take a ride and find out. Welcome to Electric Bike Report. I'm John, and I'll be walking you through the Nomad 1 Plus today. I'm really excited for this one because the original Nomad was the first bike I reviewed when I joined the team here. But I have a couple quick requests for you before we get into everything. First, just a quick reminder to please make sure you're subscribed to the channel, especially if you're on the hunt for a great e-bike. We're known for our standardized testing of every bike we review. We provide tons of detail along with objective data about how every bike performs so that you can make the best buying decision. But second, if we're able to help you when you're shopping, please consider using our affiliate link when you make a purchase to help us keep these reviews coming. So with those things covered, let's get into the Nomad. I'll start things off with a few highlights, followed by a run through of the bike specs, and then we'll get into our test sections later. The first thing that stood out to me about this bike was its comfort factor, which is a pretty normal thing when it comes to Velotric's e-bikes. There's a really great foundation with a nice thick custom saddle that would be right at home on a cruiser, and then a couple of different types of handlebars with ergonomic rubber grips, depending on which frame style you choose. The step-through model has curved cruiser-style handlebars, while the high step that we tested has flat bars with a slight ergonomic curve. But to build upon that foundation, the bike also has an adjustable stem, so its riding position can be customized for a really wide range of riders. Another highlight is that this bike felt pretty controlled and approachable in all 5 of its pedal assist settings, regardless of which top speed I had it set to. We'll talk about this a little bit more in our speed test section later, but the Nomad ships as a Class 2 e-bike with throttle and pedal assist up to 20 miles per hour, but its top speed can be adjusted down to 12 or up to 28 miles per hour, and it felt peppier when set to faster speeds, but it was always well under control. Finally, I've got to point out that this bike comes in some pretty unique colors for a fat tire bike, including the forest green that we have. There's a more standard option called Indigo Gray if you want something that blends in a little bit more, but if you're looking for something with a little more personality, you might lean towards brighter colors like Mango or Cyan. Most fat bikes we've seen tend to be fairly drab, so we really liked that this one took a bit of a different approach. Let's keep moving and run through the rest of the specs. So the Nomad has a proprietary VeloPower 750 watt rear hub motor with 75 newton meters of torque and a cadence sensor. It's powered by a 48 volt battery in the down tube with 691 watt hours of capacity. The battery is removable for easier charging. It's UL 2271 certified, and it has an IPX7 waterproof rating. This bike uses an 8-speed Shimano Altus drivetrain with a 46-tooth chainring and a 13 to 34-tooth cassette. It has a hydraulic disc brake system with 2 piston calipers and 180mm rotors. There's a set of 26-inch by 4-inch CST fat tires with knobby tread covered by plastic fenders on both wheels. There's an integrated 60 lux headlight up front, and then the rear fender has an integrated taillight that also functions as a brake light. Velotric spec'd the Nomad 1 Plus with a lockout suspension fork from Trauma with 80mm of travel and preload adjustment. And then to wrap things up with the cockpit layout, there's a central black and white display with a USB port so you can charge your phone. There's a throttle lever on the left bar along with the bike's control panel, and then the right side has a rapid fire trigger shifter and a bell. Similar to the battery, the bike itself is UL 2849 certified and has an IPX6 water resistant rating. Our test bike weighed about 85 pounds, and it has a total payload capacity of 440 pounds, including the rider, and it fits those from 5'1" up to 6'9". All right, that should cover everything, so let's see what happened when we tested the Nomad's speed and acceleration, its braking power, its climbing ability, as well as its range. Our brake test measured the Nomad 1 Plus's average stopping distance. To do this, my fellow reviewer Griffin pedaled the bike up to 20 miles per hour, hit the brakes at a marked line, and then measured how far it traveled while it slowed to a complete stop. This bike's average was 22 feet and 9 inches, which is right in line with the average for the entire fat tire category of bikes we've tested. Right now that is 22 feet and 7 inches, so we're really satisfied with this bike's result, especially considering that it's a little heavier than average for a fat tire bike by only about 5 pounds. None of its other specs are really out of the norm though, so it makes sense that its results would match the average. This bike's hydraulic brake system uses 2 piston calipers and 180mm rotors, which is exactly what we'd expect based on our previous experiences with other bikes. Now, the brakes on this bike are unbranded, so we can't really speak to their longevity, but they did a solid job in our testing, so we think it's spec'd well with a safe and effective brake system. I talked a little about our speed test back in the intro, but let's dive into the details a little further. For this test, I took the bike out to the bike paths and recorded my speeds with it set to its Class 2 and Class 3 riding modes. The motor is programmed to cut out at different speed limits in each of the bike's 5 pedal assist settings, so my goal was to find out what those speed limits were. I also tested out the throttle to see how quickly it would reach 20 miles per hour, so let's see how it went and then we can analyze the results back here. All right, we're here for a Class 2 speed test on the Nomad 1 Plus. We're starting off with no pedal assist, going kind of around 8 miles per hour, maybe up toward 8.5 at times. But yeah, I mean, you know, not trying to push super hard here. I'm really just trying to find what the speed limits are in each pedal assist setting. So, all right, yeah, we're at 8.5 now. Let's go ahead and go up to PAS 1. All right, took a second for the motor to really kind of kick on there. Very subtle, very quiet, very low amount of power. Just kind of gave me a tiny little extra push up to right around 9.5 miles per hour from the looks of things. All right, let's go up to PAS 2. All right, a little bit more there for sure. Up to about 11.5. You know, nice, comfortable, casual pace. Yeah, all right, let's go up to PAS 3. Another little boost. We're up to right around 14 miles per hour. Okay, yeah, getting faster, up to PAS 4. All right, now that feels a little bit more alive. We are up to just over 16.3 miles per hour. This is, you know, probably where I personally would spend a lot more time at this speed. I feel like I'm moving a little faster, getting where I'm needing to go. Let's go up to PAS 5. All right. And another extra little boost in power. We are up to about 18.5. Up toward 19, and that seems to be kind of where we're landing. Yeah, okay, we'll call that the Class 2 test, and I'll see you back here for the Class 3 test. All right, so we are back for a Class 3 test on the Nomad. Starting things off in PAS 1, and you know, already significantly faster than where we were in the Class 2 test. The bike feels a lot peppier here with the top speed set higher to 28 miles per hour. And by the way that you do that is turn the bike off and hold the power and plus button for about 20 seconds until a display pops up, and then you can change your speed, turn the bike off and on again, and you're good to go. So, all right, yeah, we're landing right around between 13.5 miles per hour in this setting. Let's go up to PAS 2. Yep, getting, you know, a little extra nudge there in power. We are up to 16 miles per hour. Nice casual pace, which I think is pretty much exactly what I said in the Class 2 test, but let's go up to PAS 3. All right, we are cruising up to right at 20 miles per hour. So again, feels like I'm cruising comfortably, getting where I need to go. Let's go up to PAS 4. Up to, let's see, 23 miles per hour. So I am kind of starting to ghost pedal here a little bit. Like I could spin my feet or, the pedals faster to stay engaged a little bit more, but like that same kind of relaxed pace that I was keeping before, I can't do that without ghost pedaling now. So we're going between 23 and 23 and a half miles per hour. We'll wrap things up here with PAS 5, get around this bend. All right, we are definitely flying right now. Up to 27, 28, and maybe around 28 and a half here. Okay, well, up to over 29. All right, we're gonna have to call it there. All right, so the last thing that we're gonna do here for the speed test section is a throttle acceleration test. We'll see how quickly the bike gets from 0 to 20, or at least whatever top speed it lands on, here in PAS 5 in Class 2 mode. So let's start right about now. Okay, so very gradual build in acceleration. Start to pick up, we're up to 17, 18, 18 and a half. And seems like 18.6 is about where we're gonna land. Well, okay, we got up to 19, there we go. That matches what we got in the Class 2 pedal test, so we'll call it there. To recap those numbers again, I started the test with no pedal assist and went 8.3 miles per hour on just leg power. Then going up through each of the 5 power levels in the Class 2 test, I hit 9.5 miles per hour in PAS 1, 11.4 in PAS 2, 14.1 in PAS 3, 16.3 miles per hour in PAS 4, and then 19 in PAS 5. The Nomad went faster in each of its settings when I set it to 28 miles per hour. So PAS 1 started off at 13.4 miles per hour, and then I pedaled at 16.1 in PAS 2, 20 in PAS 3, 23.2 in PAS 4, and then 29.3 miles per hour in PAS 5. Both of these tests generally went well, and if we graph all of that data, we can see that the bike has a pretty solid speed profile in both modes. We look for an angled line that shows consistent increases in speed. This tends to mean that it's very user-friendly, and we see that with both sets of numbers from my tests. There was a bit of an extra jump between PAS 4 and 5 in the Class 3 test, but overall I think it worked out pretty well. I actually really liked the bike's programming. It clearly gives you a lot of control over your speed with power levels ranging from calm and mild up to extremely fast. I also liked that the throttle shared the same speed limits as the pedal assist system, although there's a little bit of a technicality there that we should talk about. Throttles are usually limited to 20 miles per hour no matter what, but with the Nomad set to 28 miles per hour, the throttle exceeded that limit and went all the way up to the max. I like riding fast as much as the next person, but we encourage Velotric to limit that to 20 miles per hour even with pedal assist set to 28. The brand says you can just unplug the throttle if you want to meet legal requirements, but we'd still like riders to have the option to use it if they are riding at 28 miles per hour. Otherwise, I think this bike was uncommonly adaptable. As I mentioned earlier, it felt pretty chill in the Class 2 mode and then a lot livelier as a Class 3, with options between and even below that to suit the needs of new riders and experienced riders alike. Next is our range test, which is actually 2 separate tests that determine the minimum and maximum distance riders can expect from a single charge. We use Class 3 mode for this test as we think most riders will likely keep the bike there, and we set it to PAS 1 for a low power test, but then we used PAS 3 for the high power test so that we could meet the 20 mile per hour limit on our local bike paths. Just know that if you use PAS 5 in Class 3 mode, you will get less range than what we ended up with. So the bracket of minimum and maximum values we recorded were 26 and 51.7 miles, which still managed to be pretty close to the brand's advertised range of 55 miles, even with a higher speed. And compared to similar bikes, the Nomad's results ended up a little below average, but A, that's also to be expected considering the way we tested it. B, this bike's 691 watt-hour battery is on the smaller side, and C, the difference between our results and the average wasn't huge. Based on our testing of over 30 other fat tire e-bikes, the category averages 32.5 and 58 miles on a single charge. We're ultimately pretty satisfied with where things ended up, especially knowing that we'd probably have exceeded Velotric's advertised range and the category average had we used a lower power setting and a slower speed. But with a livelier pace, the bike still has a really practical range for whatever you choose to use it for, whether that be commuting, longer distance rides on multi-use trails, or shorter leisure rides around the neighborhood. I also want to point out that this bike comes with a 3-amp charger, which we were pleased to see over the usual 2-amp charger. Whenever you do run out of power and you need to plug in, this should top off the battery in about 5 hours instead of a little over 7. Just like the range test, our hill test had 2 portions. We took the Nomad 1 Plus to our standard test hill, which is called Hellhole Trail. It's a 1/3 of a mile climb on a paved path with a 12% average grade. I'm gonna pass you over to our tester, Justin, for this one, so he can share some of his thoughts along the way.
We're out on Hellhole with the Velotric Nomad, kind of their updated model, and we're doing the throttle test. So very curious to see how this one does, specifically against some of these other, fat tire, 4-inch fat tire bikes. So far it feels pretty good. Right about 12.2, 11.3, 11.0, kind of holding right around there. Oh, of course, 10.6, right as I say it's holding. So kind of through that first steep section, bottomed out right around 10.3, 10.4, which is not bad. It is a little bit heavier bike, but motor feels pretty powerful. Fairly quiet, right on average for these fat tire bikes. I'll let you listen to it here. So yeah, you hear a little bit of noise. Again, I'd kind of say that's right on average for this. Got down to just about 11-ish, 10.9 through that last steep section. So I think it'll be a decent result. And overall, just feels nice and powerful. Doesn't feel like it'll have any problems with hills, at least on throttle. My assumption will do better on pedal, but we'll turn around, go back down the hill, and we'll see how it does. Okay, back out on the pedal test now for the Velotric Nomad. And kind of right out of the gate, it definitely feels very powerful and punchy. We'll see how it does, but it's feeling pretty solid so far. So at about 14.8 to this turn, I'm in 5th gear, 13.6. Not pedaling very hard. Really just kind of soft pedaling, keeping, turning the cranks. I could do this for a while. Got down to about 12.8. I think the motor might be a titch louder when I'm pedaling here. I'll let you listen to it right now and then through this next section. Yeah, so did great through that section, down about 13.5, 13.7. I downshifted just once, was shifted great. So I went down to 4th and back to 5th. And keeping that cadence a little quicker actually I think helped it there. So yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty good result. Again, I'm not pushing hard, letting the bike do the job. Let's go to the tape and see how it did.
So Justin actually nailed it in the throttle test when he said the Nomad felt relatively average, but I want to be clear that average in the case of a fat tire bike is excellent in the grand scheme. So Justin finished the throttle portion in 1 minute and 21 seconds at an average of 13.4 miles per hour, while the fat tire category average is 1 minute and 22 seconds. His pedal test results were faster at 1 minute and 12 seconds at 15.1 miles per hour, and the average there is 1 minute and 14 seconds. Spec-wise, these results make perfect sense as the Nomad's motor, its weight, and its tires are all fairly standard for bikes of this style. Its 750 watt motor cranks out 75 newton meters of torque and peaks at 1200 watts. Its tires are those 26 by 4-inch knobbies, and the bike weighs 85 pounds, all of which line up pretty well with what we expect to see. Powerful motors are a hallmark of bikes like this, and the reality is that fat tire bikes, especially those with cadence sensors, tend to make climbing hills really easy. In this test, we saw very clearly that the Nomad gives you the option to throttle up steep hills or pedal with very low effort, so we think it did a great job. The last big thing to talk about is ride quality, which is sort of a blanket term that covers things like fit, comfort, motor engagement, the user interface, and quite a few others. Let's hit the bike paths one more time to talk about some of the basics, and then I'll see you back here for some additional thoughts. All right, so let's talk about the basics of ride quality here on the Nomad 1. So this is a fat tire bike, but I'd say it is maybe a little cushier than many out there. Comfort is definitely a big factor here. So as far as the riding position goes, that's largely customizable thanks to the adjustable stem. There's a single frame size that comes in 2 frame styles. You have the step through and the high step that we're on. The ST model is for shorter riders. The high step is for taller riders, but the whole range that the bike fits, it goes from 5'1" up to 6'9". So that the version we're on, the high step, I believe is 5'6" up to 6'9". So pretty good range there. There's about 8 inches of adjustment in saddle height. And then with the adjustable stem, you can change your handlebar height, your reach, and then of course change your riding position as well. Also for comfort, we have the suspension fork up front with 80 millimeters of travel, and that also has a lockout and preload adjustment. That I believe is made by Trauma. Looks like that's what I'm seeing here. But yeah, definitely offers enough cushion for this style of bike. Gives you some flexibility for soaking up bumps both on-road and off-road, which is also helped out by the tires. Those are made by CST, the BFT model. They are 26" by 4" with, I'd say, sort of a lighter, knobby tread pattern. So not too huge and chunky, but enough to give you some extra grip if you're riding in dirt and gravel, that sort of thing. And then you can also air those tires down a little bit to give yourself a little bit more squish in addition to what the suspension provides, and then also add a little extra grip if you're riding on those sort of slippery, loose surfaces. And then the last thing we'll talk about here is the proprietary 750 watt rear hub motor with a cadence sensor. So I'm coasting right now. I bumped up to PAS 5. I just want to show you the motor engagement when I turn the pedals. So right now, okay, so kind of a slow build there, but I felt it engage after right about a quarter turn of the cranks. And then of course, you have 5 pedal assist settings, and you can customize your top speed, and also use the throttle there. So we'll call it there. We'll bounce back to the studio, and I'll see you there. So I've talked about it earlier in the review, but I do want to touch back on the Nomad's comfort factor. Comfort is a big thing for me personally. I tend to focus on it a lot, and while everyone's different, I think most would agree that this bike feels great to ride. Personally, I really like the wide handlebars and the stability of the 4" wide tires. This bike felt really solid and stuck to the ground. I liked the relaxed and easy pedal experience from the cadence sensor, so I didn't have to work very hard. And I also think those things were a really good combination with the bike's comfortable saddle and grips. As far as handling goes, I'd say it was predictable for this bike's size and weight. This isn't the lightest or most nimble bike out there, but that's pretty normal for the fat tire category, so I think it did well overall. I found the Nomad's interface to be pretty easy to use and read, but I do think this is one area with some room for improvement. We were sent a few of Velotric's updated Plus models along with this one, and one of the 3 we received came with the brand's newer color display with multiple riding modes and power levels. I think that would have been a good fit here as well, as there really isn't that much that separates the Nomad 1 Plus from the original version of the bike, but the color display would have made for a little bit more of an obvious upgrade. As it is though, I do think this bike's ride quality is very good overall. It's comfortable to ride, it's adjustable, it's easy to pedal, it can be really fast if you want it to be, and it includes really everything you should need right out of the box, including fenders and lights. So the ultimate question is, does this refreshed version of the Nomad 1 still hold up? And I think the answer to that question is yes. I think it's a solid bike all around, and I think it provides a ton of great value for anyone looking for a fat tire bike that performs well but isn't gonna break the bank. One of the great things about the Nomad 1 Plus is that it's a fairly simple and straightforward bike without being too complicated. At some point in the future, we expect we'll see a Nomad 2 with more bells and whistles, but for now, this version of the bike does the job really well. Performance-wise, it had average results in all of our testing, which means it did very well. Average means that the bike met our expectations based on the performance of its peers, and I think that looks even better in perspective with the Nomad's price, which is extremely reasonable at the time of filming. Overall, I don't think you can go wrong here, so if you prioritize value, comfort, stability, and an easy, user-friendly experience, I think you'll be extremely satisfied with what you get with this bike. Pricing does change often, so I would encourage you to check current costs using the affiliate link in the video description. And if reading is more your thing, you can check out our written review using the other link, which will direct you to electricbikereport.com. Regardless of whether you stay here or bounce over to our website, please let us know what you think of the Nomad and feel free to reach out with any questions. If you enjoyed this review, please give us a like and hit that subscribe button as well. But that's all for today. Thanks for taking a ride with me. Again, I'm John with Electric Bike Report, and this was the Velotric Nomad 1 Plus.